celebrate. I live, I experience. And I die, and people mourn. But Jesus walks into that darkness, and He says to us, I not only am life, L-I-F-E, I am light, L-I-G-H-T, and there's nothing light, L-I-T-E, about Jesus at all. We're into everything light, right? And I'll tell you what, Jesus, there's nothing light about Him. He is awesome, and He is magnificent, and He is everything. Verse 14 says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The Word, the Creator, the giver of life and light in darkness, dwelt among us. I've asked myself, what would it have been like to be John writing that? How would you and I feel about that? John realizes who he is, and he looks around and he goes, and He dwelt among us. This isn't merely a Bible record that you and I read a verse out of the record of Scripture, but this is a man giving a testimony of what he experienced, and he says, He was right in the middle of us. Can you believe it? Can you understand it? He was dwelling right there in our lives. And he says, and we beheld His glory. The glory is of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. And so we trace this beginning. Before the birth of Christ, He lived even before creation. Because if you'll think about it, I'd like to take you beyond what we've just stated. In John 1:1 it says that in the beginning was the Word. That means that when the beginning happened, the Word was already there. John 1:17 says He is before all things, and by Him all things consist. And the word before means in front of or prior to. He is in front of or prior to all things. And by Him all things consist or are set or put together. Before creation. Go beyond Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. Go beyond John chapter 1 and verse 1. Keep going backward. Before there's a calendar, there's no clock. There's what you and I, to try to put it in some category, we call eternity past. Because, you and I, we tend to mark everything from us. And it was in our past. It was before us. So in our eternity past, before there is a clock and a calendar, before there is the marking of any kind of passing of time, go back to eternity past, and there is God. What was He doing back there? Well, I'm going to tell you what He was doing. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit were enjoying the fellowship of one another. They were enjoying one another's presence. And He lived before creation. He was with God the Father. The Word was with God, and the Word was God, and He is the Creator. We've looked at all of these things. John 1:3 tells us all things were made by Him. John 1:16 says, for by Him were all things created that are in heaven and are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through Him and for Him. He tells us that this is going on, and that's not John 1:16. I'm sorry, didn't read that correctly. That's Colossians 1:16. The fact is that He is our Creator. Okay, so we explore all this past stuff. Can we begin to at least categorize it in our mind that you go back there and there He is? And then we come to Christmas. And here's what we do. December the 25th. It's Christmas on my calendar. It says it's got a little label on there. December 25th. Isn't it interesting how that we mark off calendar years by January through December, and yet children mark off the year by how many days till Christmas? My kids are grown. They're still doing it. They compete over who's going to be the first one to announce it's 100 days till Christmas. They also compete to see who's going to play Christmas music first. I think, what was it, August? We had somebody playing Christmas music this year. They mark the world event around Christmas. Everything they're doing is about it. But unfortunately, sometimes the Christmas celebration is about a tree, and it's about presents, and it's about what I'm going to get out of this. The birth of Jesus Christ, though, is what Christmas is all about. It's about the Son of God dwelling among us.